Hi, this is Dan Matson. Please note this podcast was created several years ago. Some of the links, email addresses, phone numbers, and promos are outdated and no longer valid. Thanks and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats weekly podcast episode number 118. I'm your host, Dan Matson, aka WoodenBoat Dan. If you can't do it, probably not possible, folks. And this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to celebrating the art, craft, history, tradition, and romance of wooden vessels around the world. Today's featured segment is me, Dan Matson, WoodenBoat Dan, yakking about 2013. Actually, I'm going to be reflecting on 2013 for Hooked on Wooden Boats, some of the successes that I had and the fun things that happened, and then I'm going to talk about 2014 and what my plans are for the podcast, and we're going to have some fun with it. So I'm going to jump right in here rather than do the usual intro and just start talking about it. So in case you didn't know, I started Hooked on Wooden Boats podcast in September of 2011. So it's been a little over 2 years now, which is pretty cool. So 2013 was the second full calendar year that I've done the podcast. I met yet another boatload of people, I guess you could say. No pun intended there. Had a lot of fun. Built some boats, did some interviews. I appreciate your support and the supports of hundreds of other wooden boat lovers around the world. I thought I'd list my top 10 happenings in 2013, and the 10 quickly turned into more than 10. I don't know, there's like 13 or 14, but I thought I'd go through these kind of quickly and tell you some of the highlights for me. These aren't necessarily in any particular order. But one of the first things that happened in 2013, not one of the first things, but it's first on my list, is I did publish my first ebook. And this was actually on my list of goals at the end of last year to publish my first ebook. So I published that in August. It's called Get in the Wooden Boat Game, A Guide for Building Your First Boat. So it's about a 38-page ebook. I was really happy with the book. It was a lot of fun writing. It was also quite a bit of work, but I enjoyed every minute of it. And it's basically a guide for people that are thinking about building their first boat, who want some information about how they should go about the process of deciding what to build and understanding what it might cost and how long it'll take and those sort of things. If you have an interest in that book, you can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/ebook1. And you can get information there and make a purchase. It's $4.99 if you want to do that, and you can download it immediately. So check it out if you get a chance. Number 2 on the list, I attended 4 wooden boat festivals in 2013. I attended for the second time the Olympia, Washington Wooden Boat Fair in May. I attended for probably the 15th time, I'm guessing, the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival. That was in September. I attended the Center for Wooden Boats Festival for probably the 12th or 15th time in Seattle. And also for the very first time, I attended the biannual Bainbridge Island Wooden Boat Festival I think that was in June. So that was the first time for that. Each festival was a lot of fun. Each kind of have their own flavor and local culture involved. The biggest one is, of course, the one at Port Townsend, which is a 3-day event. A lot of people there. The smallest one I attended was probably the one at Bainbridge Island, which is held every other year, that was really fun. A lot of local boats. Actually, most of the boats there are from Bainbridge Island, because that's part of the requirement to be in the festival, I believe. I did teach 2 classes at the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival based upon my new book, and the classes were full, both of them. There was probably 25 or 30 seats in the classes, so that was really fun. I had a blast doing that. Number 3 on my list is I started doing phone interviews for the first time in 2013. It's been my goal to do that for a while, but it takes special equipment and technical knowledge to do a good job of it. And the last thing I want to do is throw up a crummy recording with poor audio quality on my podcast. So in March of 2012, I purchased the equipment that would allow me to do the phone interviews. And finally, in about June of 2013, I got the equipment hooked up properly, tested it with some friends, and then in, I believe it was around July or August, I did my first phone interview with Doug Hylan of Hylan Boats in Maine. And that's episode number 87 if you're interested. Since then, I've done probably half a dozen or so phone interviews. The cool thing about the phone interviews is it allows me to interview people like Iain Oughtred, who lives on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, and I'm probably not going to be going to Scotland anytime soon, although I'd love to. So it just opens up my universe to interview people that aren't geographically close to where I am. So that's pretty cool. Also interviewed, the interviews with Iain, by the way, were episodes number 116 and 117. I would encourage you to check those out. I also interviewed Pat Lown, who's the director of research at WoodenBoat in Brooklin, Maine. That was really fun. So that was number 3. Number 4, I started doing my Interview the Expert series, where I select experts in certain areas of wooden boats and go through a specific set of questions. That was pretty fun because I do have people asking for more technical information, not just biographical histories and that sort of thing. So I started with 6 interviews about different construction methods for building boats. Did an interview with Russell Brown on using marine epoxy. And then my interview number 117 was with Iain Oughtred on glued plywood Lapstrake. So I would encourage you to, if you haven't listened to those, there's some great information. If you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/index, there's an index of all the episodes there, and you can quickly find those episodes and listen to them. They're a lot of fun. In 2013, I personally finished building my 12-foot Lapstrake canoe, Chelan. It's based on the sassafras canoe that was designed by Chris Kulziski, and the kit's sold by Chesapeake Lightcraft, although I built mine from scratch from the book called The Canoe Shop. If you're interested in seeing the launch video of Chelan, you can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/Chelan. So that was really fun to build a boat in. It took me about a year, a little bit over a year, which for me is actually very fast. The other thing that, next thing on my list here is one of my goals for 2013 was to build a SCAMP. I think it was on June 1st of 2013, I bought a SCAMP kit with the goal in mind that I would assemble the kit fully, build the rudder and centerboard, and sell it to someone else who could, from that point, finish the boat the way that they wanted to, with paint and varnish and hardware and rigging and all that stuff. There's a lot of decisions, a lot of things that go into that last part. So I spent a couple hundred hours building a SCAMP, assembling a SCAMP kit between June and September, and in October I did sell the SCAMP, which is pretty cool. I made a profit of about $3,000. So by the hour, it wasn't a get-rich project, but I didn't plan it that way anyway, so I was very happy with that, and the purchaser was very happy with the boat. I did a great job on it. If you'd like more information about that, you can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/SCAMP. Moving on to number 8 on the list, in September of 2012, I sent out an email to my subscriber list, which at the time was probably a couple hundred people, saying, hey, I'm going to be in Port Townsend for the Wooden Boat Festival, and I'd love it if you could come and we could meet and talk shop. So I got an email back from Corey Rubin and Christina Cogan, who live in Florida, saying they were going to fly out to the festival because Corey was thinking about going to the Wooden Boat School, and they heard about the school through my podcast. So they flew out, we hooked up. This was in September 2012, and then they made a plan to move to Port Townsend in 2013 so Corey could attend the school. So in early September of 2013, Corey and Christina arrived in Port Townsend right before the festival, drove their little Toyota Yaris, whatever you call them, pulled a little trailer out here with all their stuff and moved to Port Townsend, and Corey started school. So that was pretty cool to see somebody actually start at the boat school because of my podcast. That was pretty exciting. Number 9, I taught 3 classes in 2013 based upon my book. 2 of those were at the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival in September. And then in October, was it October or November? Actually, it was November 20th, 2013. I was a guest speaker at the Wooden Boat Wednesdays series that the Northwest Maritime Center holds, where they invite a wooden boat speaker every other week. And it's a lunchtime event. It's an hour and a half long. So I did teach my class there too. There was about 25 or 30 people there. That was a lot of fun. And I felt like the classes were very successful this year. I got a lot of positive feedback and went very smoothly. The one class I did teach in 2012 didn't go as smooth. I didn't have as many participants. And I learned a lot, and I adjusted and felt like 2013 turned out really good. I currently have, this is number 10, over 500 newsletter subscribers now, which is pretty cool. Number 11, I met more folks at Wooden Boat Magazine and Wooden Boat in Brooklin, Maine. Got to interview Pat Lown over the phone. Got to interview Matt Murphy, the editor. Got to meet Tom Jackson when he was in Port Townsend in September. And actually Matt was there too, so I got to meet Matt face to face. Got to know Jim Miller a little bit over the phone and through email, so that was pretty cool. So that was really fun to connect with those guys. Obviously, they have a huge part in the whole wooden boat thing, and it's just kind of fun to connect with them. So in 2013, I did probably, 45 or 50 interviews total, and it's really hard to pick favorites for me, but I think a couple of the most interesting and funnest interviews that I did, one was with Roy Jackson. It's episode 72. And Roy, who is in his probably mid to late 70s now, about 4 or 5 years ago, he finished building a 43-foot schooner, and it took him 33 years to build this boat. It was a fascinating interview because I didn't know how he would really view those 33 years. I mean, to me, if my first real boat took about 5 years to build, and that was a really long time, I got pretty impatient, but Roy loved every minute of the process and talked about it on this interview, so that was really fun. And then I interviewed at the other end of the spectrum an 8-year-old boy named Henry LePage, who when he was 7 years old, he built a Poor Boy Skiff with the help of his dad, and he visited the Wooden Boat show in Mystic Seaport, Connecticut, and has decided he would like to be in the Coast Guard. So I interviewed him, and that was really fun. And that was actually for my 100th episode of Hooked on Wooden Boat. So that was really cool. And again, there was a ton of fun interviews and great stuff, but these are kind of the 2 that kind of stick out to me as being unique and really special. The other thing that happened in 2013 is I got an email from a reporter in Sweden. And I'll just read that to you real quickly. It says, "Hi, Dan. My name is Andreas Berglund. I'm a reporter for Swedish Boating Magazine, and I have no idea how to pronounce that. It's BATNYTT. I would like to mention your podcast in our news gadgets section. Is that okay with you? I would need some high-resolution pictures that would promote your blog, and we can publish it alongside the short text about your podcast." So anyway, I connected with Andreas, and they did put a little article in a Swedish newspaper, or actually a Swedish boating magazine with a picture of me. So that was really kind of fun. And kind of the interesting part of that is my ancestors way back are from Sweden on my dad's side, even though I've never been there. And so that was just really a lot of fun. And then number 14, and this happens every year, I met a ton of new people and connected with them, and that's very rewarding. It's really the people part of this that's so fascinating and fun. Meeting people from all over the world who have different interests in wooden boats and different skills and talents. I always enjoy that part of it. And the more people I meet, the cool thing about it is that opens up new avenues to other people. And now when I see people, there's always suggestions of, you know what, this person would be an interview. Have you heard of this person? And so I've got a list of, probably at least 20 or 30 people as potential interviewees for the future. So, fun stuff. As far as 2014 goes, here's some of the things I'm thinking about. Now, some of these are goals and some of these are just ideas. And to me, the difference is with my goals, these are things I definitely want to accomplish. Ideas are things that it's not quite to the goal stage. I'm not sure I'm going to take it on or that it's a great idea, but I'm considering it. So I'm going to start with the goals for 2014. One of my goals is to continue to update the website and to organize the affiliate links. So the affiliate links are links to places like Amazon, Jamestown Distributors. Gosh, I'm blanking out here on some of the other ones that I've had. But it's basically West Marine. These are places where if you go to my website and you click those banners and you go make a purchase, I get paid a small commission. I want to get that really more organized so that you can go to one page and it's like, okay, here's some great resources. You may already be using some of these. It doesn't cost you any more to go through my website and I get paid a little bit, and that helps me defray the costs of the podcast. So I want to do that. Another goal is to continue doing the podcast weekly. I did take off 2 weeks in 2013, which I had not done that before. I hadn't missed 1 week, but I decided, you know what? I don't have to do this every week. Once in a while, if I need the week off, I can do that. So I took off a week in right before the Port Townsend WoodenBoat Festival, the day before it started, because I was really busy. And then I took off a week in, October or November, something like that. Might have been November. I think it was actually Thanksgiving, which falls on a Thursday. So I decided, you know what? Today's Thanksgiving. I'm not going to worry about doing the podcast. So I'll probably do the same thing in 2014. There'll be 50 or 49 or 50 or 51 podcasts that I put out this year. So that's one of my goals. Another one of my goals is to get the podcast to the break-even point. In 2013, I got to look at it here just a second. In 2013, my total income from the podcast was $468.39. Okay, that's not a whole lot, but that's more than the previous year. I think the previous year it was $100 or $200, something like that. So a big chunk of that, actually majority of it, does come from the affiliate commission income, like if you make a purchase from Amazon or Jamestown Distributors or West Marine through my website. So I would like to get that number up to a break-even point. My expenses, not counting my travel last year, were a little bit over $500. So I would love it if I could get the podcast income up to $1,000 or $2,000 in a year. Then it would cover pretty much all my expenses, and that would be great. So if you're interested in helping out with that, going through my affiliate stuff, my affiliate banners would be really cool. Or you can just go to, a lot of people do make purchases on Amazon. If you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/Amazon, that'll take you to Amazon. If you make a purchase of anything, I get paid I believe it's a 4% commission, and I would really appreciate that. Okay, next on my goal for 2014, this may come as a surprise, or it was a surprise to me. last week I was thinking, you know what, I bet I could buy a used wooden boat that needed some work, a small boat for probably under $1,000, repair it, paint it, fix it up, and make some money. And I've got some time right now because my day work is kind of slow. I went to Craigslist, and lo and behold, I find a SCAMP for sale. And this is a SCAMP that's been started by a person. So they purchased the kit, they started the boat, didn't get very far. They got it, I don't know, it's planked up and so on. And they purchased a sail and a trailer for it, and they've got some epoxy and things, and they're not going to finish it. They want to sell the boat to somebody that'll finish it. I was just like shocked. But anyway, so I went and looked at the boat. It was what I expected it to be, so I purchased it. I got a good deal on it. So I'm going to be building another SCAMP this year. And I'm not sure if I will keep this one or sell it, but I'm going to start working on it. And I'm really excited. This is pretty cool because I thought about doing another one this year, but it's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to have time and whatever, but this was too good a deal to pass up, so I'm really excited about that. So my goal is to finish that boat this year. I'm either going to keep it for myself or sell it. We'll see what happens there. Another goal I have personally this year is to get out on the water more in my boats or in other people's boats. I just didn't get out that much last year. I finished my canoe, and I only took it out a handful of times, maybe 2 or 3 times. Part of that is I got to get over, I might scratch it if I use it. Oh, my goodness. I guess I should have just painted the whole thing with latex paint inside and out so I wouldn't worry about it. But anyway, I want to get out on the water more. In fact, I'm going to try to get out this month. It's January 1st, and Happy New Year, by the way. While I'm recording this, I want to get out on the water this month on a clear day. I'm going to dress warm and get in that thing and do some paddling. Because the other thing is the double-ended paddle, the Greenland paddle that I carved that I had was a little short for this boat. So I actually added 16 inches length to the center of the paddle. And I have not tried it yet, and I'm pretty excited to do that because it was just too short before, but I think that extra 16 inches or so is going to help. Plus, I put drip rings on it, so I won't have water running down my shirt sleeves, which will be pretty good. So I want to get out on the water more. Finally, my last goal is to grow the podcast audience and get more connected with people. And the growth is happening this year, and I expect that to continue to happen. Then in the idea category, here's 3 ideas I have, and I would appreciate your feedback on these. If you have feedback, shoot me an email, dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com. One idea I have is to set up a small boat registry on my site. As you may or may not know, WoodenBoat magazine has an online boat registry for boats over 20 feet in length, 20 feet and over, where you can put a picture up there, a description, and that sort of thing. As long as there's a wooden hull, you can do that. And then the Wooden Boat Foundation also has a registry for wooden boats. I believe those are also 20 feet and over, although I don't know exactly, but there's some minimum length requirement there. But what I thought is, there's a lot of us that have smaller wooden boats that are under 20 feet, anywhere from, 6 or 8 feet up to 18, 19 feet. And I thought it would be kind of cool to have a registry for boats under 20 feet. Doesn't matter what the length is, as long as it's under 20 feet. You could register it on the site, put a picture up there. If it's got a wooden hull, tell us about the boat, and we could have some fun with it. It would be a free service that I would put up on my website. So you could go to the page and register and put your boat up there. And then you could search for other boats, see what other people are up to. So I don't know. So I thought that'd be kind of fun. So if you have any thoughts about that, if that sounds like a great idea to you, I'd love to hear from you. So let me know what you think there. Another idea I have is to possibly redo the audio format for the introduction and outroduction to the podcast. The reason this is just an idea and not a goal is because I like continuity in one way, but on the other hand, I know maybe it can get a little boring. So if you have thoughts about that, I would love to hear from you. The other idea I have is to possibly do a survey of my listeners to ask what they like and don't like about the podcast, ways they think they could improve it, how much you're listening, that sort of thing. Because I do get varied feedback. I mean, I get emails from folks saying, hey, we really like the biographical story part of the podcast where you interview people and you talk about their lives and where they grew up and what they did during their youth and that sort of thing. And then I get other emails saying, hey, you've got these people on here who are experts in some area of WoodenBoat. Why not focus more on the technical part, the actual WoodenBoat part of what these people know, and get focused on that. So anyway, if you have thoughts about any of these ideas or goals, I would appreciate your input. I'm not too much into statistics, but it's kind of fun once a year to look at the numbers and see how they're doing, and not necessarily an indicator of success or anything, but it does show how the community is growing and how things are going. So here's some stats for those of you that are into stats. In 2013, I published 50 podcasts, so now there's 118 total with this episode. And Hooked on WoodenBoat podcasts have been downloaded over 98,000 times now by folks in over 112 different countries. I had hoped I would hit the 100,000 mark by the end of 2013, but didn't quite make it, but still 98,000, that's quite a few. 2013 had the most downloads ever in 1 year, had over 63,000 downloads. And the top countries for downloads, starting with the largest number of downloads and working our way down, out of the 112 countries, number 1 was the U.S., number 2, Canada, number 3, United Kingdom, number 4, Australia, number 5, New Zealand, number 6, Sweden, number 7, the Netherlands, and number 8, China. So I thought that's kind of interesting. The most downloaded episodes out of the 118, the number 1 most downloaded episode is episode number 78. It's been downloaded almost 1,500 times. And that's an episode where I didn't attend it as a participant, but I attended for interview purposes a Pygmy WoodenBoat class in 2013 at the Northwest Maritime Center, where there was a group of people each building their own kayak. There's probably 8 or 10 kayaks being built. I did an interview with Tom and Cindy Krebel, I don't know how to pronounce that, but Krehbiel, who were attending the class from Alaska and building a kayak. And then I also, on that episode, did an interview with John Lockwood talking about his classes and some Pygmy boat stuff, and had some fun with it. So that's the most downloaded episode to date. Number 2 most downloaded episode is the interview with Roy Jackson, and that's episode number 72. That's the one I mentioned earlier in this podcast, Roy built a 43-foot schooner. He built that over a 33-year period, a 43-foot schooner. Number 3 on the list, episode 74, an interview with Captain Ken Greff, who's on the board of the Adventurous, the schooner Adventurous, which had its 100th anniversary this year. On this episode, we talk about Ken's history with Adventurous and the history of Adventurous. Very fascinating interview. And then number 4, episode 79, is an interview I did with Corey and Tupper Griffith. Corey is a former captain of the Adventurous, and Tupper has worked on boats for quite a few years, and they own together the wooden Blanchard catboat built in 1933 called the Sharon L. And this interview is kind of their personal history, how they got into boating, what they're up to now. It was a lot of fun. So that was number 4. So it's kind of interesting to see what's what people are the most interested in. I received a lot of emails last year from listeners, probably averaged a couple a week at least, and that was really fun. Thought I'd just read just excerpts out of 4 of those emails. Here's one. Hi, Dan. I found your podcast at the beginning of the summer and was really spoiled listening to you every day. Keep up the good work. Your podcasts are very inspiring and informative. Here's another one. Hi, Dan. I'm sending this quick email to say that I discovered your Hooked on Wooden Boat podcast about a week ago, and I haven't stopped listening. I have a little time to catch up on your podcast, and I'm up to your cast number 12, and I've been enjoying every one so far. Here's another one. Just recently came across your podcast, and I'm hooked. Living in the middle of the prairie here in central Illinois, I'm kind of lonely as a wooden boat builder. And last but not least, I just signed up to your newsletter after listening to your podcast episodes 75 to 85. Right now I'm building a wooden kayak and a whitewater dory made from driftwood and recycled construction scraps. Building has been a blast, in part because I have been listening to your podcast in the shop. Your interviewees are inspiring and have me dreaming of the next project. Thank you for all your hard work. To be honest, folks, these type of emails are what really keep me going. I love to get this. It just tells me that people are really enjoying what I'm doing and it's worth the effort. And I would love to hear from you. And I would especially love to hear voicemail feedback about the podcast. You can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/voicemail if you'd like to leave a message up to 90 seconds and tell me what you like about the podcast. That would be really cool. Or if you have a question, that would be cool too. Okay, at the end of 2012, I had some goals for 2013. It's kind of fun to see how I did on those. One of my goals, or actually the heading for these goals, is to take the show to the next level. And number 1 there was to improve the website. And I did improve it. I've continued to do the index. And just recently I got the comments working again. And I've got the pages loading faster because of some things that I did because the pages were loading a little bit slow. So yeah, I have definitely improved things there. And if you have ideas for improvements to the website, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Secondly was to improve my equipment. And actually, I did that by starting to use equipment I had already purchased to do the phone recording. So definitely hit that one. Better email response time. I don't always respond within 24 hours to my emails, and I would say I don't necessarily think I improved my response time last year, but I did answer every email that I received. Another goal was to write my first ebook, which I did. Another goal was to do a calendar for 2014 using the new camera I had just purchased a year ago. I did not do the calendar. I decided not to because of the amount of work involved, and I just figured it wasn't going to sell 1 million copies, and it just wasn't worthwhile. I took some great pictures, which I put on the website, and you can view them there, but the calendar didn't happen. Personally, I wanted to finish my canoe, which I did, and I wanted to build a SCAMP, which I did. So overall, I would say I did pretty good on my goals for 2013. So that's about it for today, folks. I appreciate you being part of the Hooked on Wooden Boat journey in 2013, and I hope it has been as rewarding for you as it was for me. And if you enjoy the podcast, please pass on the word to others. Also, you can give me a review in iTunes. I would appreciate that. And the other thing, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, if you use my affiliate links, I get paid a small commission, which helps pay for the cost of doing the podcast, and I would really appreciate that. If you have feedback for me, like I mentioned before, you can email me, dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com, or leave a voice message, hookedonwoodenboats.com/voicemail. So have a great week. Have a great year. If you haven't set goals for 2014 personally, I would encourage you to do that. Even if you only make 2 or 3 goals, having some goals is better than no goals, because if you don't have goals, you're not going to hit them. I've learned through my friend Dan Miller that I listen to on the 48 Days podcast that having goals and dreams for the future is a really positive thing. It helps you achieve things that you wouldn't otherwise achieve. So I hope you have a great 2014. Thanks again for everything in 2013. Keep the bright side up and the barnacled side down. WoodenBoat Dan, over and out. God bless.